A non-threatened heart. Godly leaders should put others first, even if it means giving up the desires of their own hearts. Here's Gene.
You know, David humbly, I believe, illustrates this principle. And he had a great opportunity to illustrate it because he had an intense desire to build the temple. An intense desire. He wanted to build that temple for the glory of God, but God said no. That was difficult for David to handle, especially when he said, you can't do it, but your son Solomon will build the temple. That's my will. But it's amazing. We see a true view of David's heart when it came to accepting that reality. And we read about that in 1 Chronicles chapter 22. My son, David said to Solomon, it was in my heart to build a house for the name of Yahweh my God. And when he says it's in my heart, that's an intense desire. He really wanted to do this for the Lord. However, he goes on to say, a little later in the passage, now, my son, may the Lord be with you, and may you succeed in building the house of the Lord your God, as he said about you. Above all, may the Lord give you insight and understanding when he puts you in charge of Israel, so that you may keep the law of the Lord your God, and then you will succeed if you carefully follow the statutes and ordinances the Lord commanded Moses for Israel. Be strong and courageous, and don't be afraid or discouraged. And it's interesting as you read about this, again, you have a glimpse, I think, into David's non-threatened heart. You don't see any jealousy. You don't see any anger. You don't see him subtly undermining Solomon's task, but rather being incredibly supportive of everything that he was to do, according to the will of the Lord. And I think we see an illustration here of what happened in the New Testament with John the Baptist, who is called to be the forerunner of Jesus Christ. You also see a non-threatened heart. We read about that in John chapter 3, where it says, you yourselves can testify that I said, I am not the Messiah, but I've been sent ahead of him. He who has the bride is the groom. And there, of course, he's using a metaphor to illustrate the fact that the church was to be the bride of Christ. He who has the bride is the groom. But the groom's friend who stands by and listens for him rejoices greatly at the groom's voice. In essence, he's saying, I am simply the friend of the groom, Jesus Christ. So this joy of mine is complete. I've fulfilled my role. In other words, he's saying, and here is the statement that is so powerful. He must increase, but I must decrease. And we see this, I think, illustrated even here in the Old Testament in the life of David when he was not able to build that temple, but stepped aside, as it were, to allow his son to take over that role. So the reflection and response question relates to our lives today as it relates to the illustration of John the Baptist and of David. How does John the Baptist's willingness to put Christ first serve as a model for all leaders? And I say leaders, particularly though it's a model certainly for all of us. And I think the answer to that is very clear in Scripture. If we put Christ first in our lives, if we really put Christ first, we'll put others first. 2 + 2 = 4. If we really put Christ first, we'll put others first. And that is a lesson that Jesus was trying to teach the apostles there in the upper room when he washed their feet and he said, he that is greatest is to be servant of all. And what he is simply saying, I'm giving you a lot of authority as apostles. But you're to serve one another and you're to serve others. Yes, you have a great role to fulfill. I've chosen you to fulfill this role, but you are to serve others. You are to put others first in your lives. And you follow that through, and you see it in relationship to pastors and spiritual leaders in the church. Though we have authority to lead, we are to put others first. We are to be servants. We are to minister to others as servants. That's a beautiful balance. He that is greatest is servant of all. We see this illustrated with fathers. As fathers, we're given tremendous responsibility to lead our families, and yet we are to be servants of our families. We see this in relationship to a husband who Paul said is the head of his wife, the primary leader, and yet he is to love her as Christ loved the church. Though he is the leader, he is to be the servant. And so we see this illustrated. We see this concept, really, that is modeled for us in John the Baptist and in the Old Testament in David, that he must increase, I must decrease. And that's a beautiful balance. And I believe that we can work that out only within the context of true biblical Christianity. If we put Christ first, we'll put others first. And that's a beautiful, beautiful concept throughout the New Testament, beginning, as we've seen, in the Old Testament, as David illustrates a non-threatened heart in relationship to his son Solomon.